Good day. It is a great joy and privilege to be with you this day, and I am immensely grateful to Archbishop Verkamen for his welcome, his invitation, his hospitality, and his sense of Catholicity. Should we fast or feast? Those words of Jesus are an icon of the typical struggles in religious communities over the law and what kind and level of observance of the law is necessary. Do we believe in grace, or do we see the world as a grim and joyless place and God as a deity to be appeased? There are definitely times for fasting, but when you see Jesus, he urges us to break out the best wine and share it, set the table with abundance, and invite in the neighbors and anyone who is wandering by on the street. I spent my first year of seminary commuting to a Roman Catholic seminary an hour away from my home. It's connected to a Benedictine abbey in the United States, founded by monks from Engelberg, Switzerland. Each day I ate a meal with the other students in the refectory. The culture was fairly solemn, maybe even dour, although you could find a fair bit of passion in the classroom discussions. Mount Angel's refectory did a good job of recognizing feast days, particularly during Lent. Lunch during most of Lent was a great deal simpler. Good but plain and meatless fare and no dessert. That is, until the feast of St. Joseph. Then we had prime rib and Napoleons for dessert. The shape of Lent was clearly about fasting, but it made room for a major feast. Benedictines know a great deal about welcoming the stranger. The feast itself was an invitation to discover Jesus in our midst, even and especially in the depths of Lent. Celebrating the presence of the bridegroom is sacramental. It's an outward recognition of one's inner joy at recognizing the host. Feasting in the midst of a fast is a reminder that ultimately we are made for abundant life at God's table. You and I are invited to bring wine for the feast. God gives the gift of grapes, but we have to participate in the fermenting. These sacks of skin we walk around in are wineskins, yet not new or old simply by virtue of years. Like Ezekiel's dry bones, wineskins need yeasty breath and spirit to be created. In Jesus' day, the juice of pressed grapes was poured into a new goat skin to ferment. The opening was tied off, and the fermenting wine stretched and expanded that skin as the yeast did its work. When the wine was ready to drink, the sugar had turned to alcohol and carbon dioxide, and the skin had been stretched beyond recovery. A wineskin cannot be reused for a brand new fermentation. Wineskins have to be continually renewed in order to be productive. If we're going to be lively partners in God's invitation to the feast, we're faced with the challenge of changing the old skin for a new one that can again stretch and expand. That's one of the uses of fasting, letting go of the dead and dying within us, both individually and as a community. Jesus' invitation is always to that dying and rising in order to be able to rise and enjoy the feast. That sacramental reality is part of our missional challenge. The body of Christ is also like a living wineskin, or maybe a cellar or a tomb full of wineskins. Different harvests from different vineyards, together they all contribute to the feast. And fresh wineskins are continually needed. Fresh wineskins challenge us. We don't always trust the capacity of those new ones. We find it hard to believe that the tattooed and pierced, the immigrant, aimless children, or even cultured despisers of religion can make good wine. We resist new and changing language, images, and music in the wineskin we call liturgy. Some of us struggle with the wineskins of mission. The forms change shape, but they also retain a focus on the kind of diaconal work that Jesus did, feeding the hungry and healing the sick, whether there are strangers on the road to Jericho or asylum seekers at Schiphol. The old is always passing away, and we struggle with letting go. Can our ecumenical winemaking contribute to the feast? Can we try a new skin and suspend judgment until the wine is ready to drink? Are we willing to mix grapes from different fields? We'll never produce exactly the same wine twice. When we can recognize that the Spirit is still at work, can we suspend judgment and live in trust while the wine ferments and ages? Judging too soon is like opening the skin before the fermentation is finished. Either we're likely to contaminate the must or stop the fermentation prematurely, and we're far more likely to get vinegar than well-aged wine. We're invited to the feast, to join in producing the feast, and to enjoy what is contributed by the other guests. The only real question is whether we're willing to keep letting the skin of our hearts be renewed. Come to the feast. Bring what you have and who you are, and ask for a new skin. The winemaker will provide the yeast.